Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
SLT Mobitel, එකම එක සමදියාව. IWS Aviation.
Hello there, you're watching our television. This is State of Business. I'm Pamutha Katagampala. Our top stories. President steers nation towards competitive export markets. Industrial production decreases in July. Welcome back. Now let's have a detailed look at these stories. President Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday said that Sri Lanka is focusing on an export-oriented, very competitive market economy as the country has the opportunity of supplying South Asia, Southeast and East Asia. President Wickremesinghe said that Sri Lanka aims to become a prosperous nation by 2048 as we reach the centenary of our independence.
As I mentioned earlier, we're looking for is an export-oriented, very competitive market economy. I think we have the opportunity of supplying South Asia, Southeast and East Asia. Our focus is on competitiveness and export markets. That's where we are working, looking at the Industry 4 technology and modernizing agriculture. If you look at the region, by 2050, from Saudi to Indonesia, there will be additional 500 million mouths to feed at a high income level. Sri Lanka will remain at this 25 million. We won't increase our numbers. So if we, and there be the older segments will increase, but if we go into modernized agriculture, we can capture part of that market. Agriculture needs technology, it needs help, and we have small holdings, but we do that. We'll also go for outgrow projects. Those are the part of that. Secondly, even in manufacturing and others, we are going to semi-automation to automation. If our population is 25 million and it's an aging population, then automation and semi-automation is one way out for Sri Lanka. It will be capital intensive, but we're looking at technology, the service sectors. It's a complete modernization. And by 2048, we have to become a prosperous economy using the Chinese term. But 2048 is the centenary of our independence. So the plans and the roadmaps will come from 2023. It's a 25-year program to go ahead. So this is where we will need your assistance.
Meanwhile, credit to the private sector, a key barometer of economic dynamism, has continued to shrink for the third consecutive month in July. This is in response to the high interest rates adopted to fight inflation and tightening credit standards by the banking and financial sector. According to the latest data, credit to business and private individuals from licensed commercial banks fell 41 billion rupees on par with the June number. This came with a heavy policy rate hike in April, which pushed prospective borrowers into the sidelines and banks to become more cautious against fresh lending after the economy crashed in March. The June quarter earnings report of the banking sector offered a preview of what could come in the back half of the year with muted growths in their portfolios. The July data reinforced that banks could see smaller balance sheets by the end of the current financial year from where they started the year, as they have virtually closed lending. Banks are fast repricing loans to maximize their loan margins to maintain their previous bottom line at a minimum, although higher provisions are making it harder. Banks and the broader financial sector benefited from the latter half of 2020 through the entirety of 2021 from the record low interest rates. This came as part of the unprecedented monetary stimulus provided by the central bank to prop up an economy hobbled by pandemic-related lockdowns. As global demand surpassed supply, coupled with the war in Ukraine, global commodities prices reached decade highs, prompting central bank to tighten their policies and rein in inflation. The central bank tightened policy to stem money flow by way of loans, so that demand is brought in balance with supply and the availability of dollars. Sri Lanka's economy is projected to shrink and present in 2022 with the powered growth reported since 2016. Now, the index of industrial production released by the Department of Census and Statistics shows a 22% fall to 85.6 index points from a year ago. The shortage of fuel and power cuts also contributed to the decline in industrial production, which records the lowest index value for the last 19 months. Sri Lanka's industrial production fell in July amid the people's protests that drove Gotabaya Rajapaksa from his presidency. The index fell 2% in July compared to the previous month's production. The index of industrial production provides information to gauge the industrial sector performance and forecast future economic performance. Inflation in Sri Lanka is running at over 65%, with food inflation running over 90%. Since August, the fuel shortage has eased with the introduction of a quota system, while power cuts have also eased with increased hydroelectric generation due to higher rainfall. During July, food production fell 24%, while manufacturing of textiles fell 13.3%. Manufacturing of apparels, however, made some robust gains with 17.5% growth. Manufacturing of paper and paper products in July fell 66.3% amid import restrictions on printing-related materials, while manufacturing of coke and refined petroleum products plunged 98.5% as the Sapugaskanda oil refinery was not in operation. Industrial production in August is expected to have picked up considerably with the return of political stability under President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The fuel shortages and power cuts eased significantly in August, while on the 1st of September, Sri Lanka secured a staff deal with the International Monetary Fund for a 48-month $2.9 billion extended fund facility. This is seen as a positive sign as it boosts investor confidence in Sri Lanka. See you soon with more stories after this short commercial break.
Stay and use more. Data Bowl 1, data Bowl 1.
A non-stop journey with Data Bowl 1 from SLT Mobitel Home Broadband.
Welcome back. You're watching State of Business. Now, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena on Friday assured the apparel industry of government assistance for expansion and further diversification of the industry. The sector has been identified as one of the most successful and promising export trades vital for the country's economy. This assurance was given when a senior delegation of the Joint Apparel Association Forum called on the Premier. Prime Minister Gunawardena congratulated the apparel industry for showing substantial export growth despite the challenges faced due to local and international economic downturn. Apparel exports in the first 7 months have increased by 20% to $3.5 billion. JAF Chairman Shera Damalin explained the issues regarding certain duties, freight forwarding charges, energy and transport-related issues, and urged the government intervention to solve them. JAF seeks to compete with other countries to get more market access and bring in much-needed foreign exchange to the country. The Prime Minister assured them the government would streamline facilities and urged garment exporters to seek more foreign investment for expansion and further diversification. The next few months will be critical, and the government seeks more support from all export sectors to take all possible measures to increase exports, to narrow the trade deficit and revive the economy. Meanwhile, President Secretary Saman Ekanaika last week advised government officials to identify the challenges faced by the apparel industry and take immediate steps to solve these issues. A discussion aimed at solving the issues that have arisen in the apparel industry and identifying the negative effects that have affected the job security of those engaged in the industry was held last Thursday at the President's office. In a recent exclusive with Art Television, Secretary General to the Joint Apparel Association Forum, Johan Lawrence provided a comprehensive overview of the Sri Lankan apparel industry.
So, to talk a little bit about the apparel industry, the apparel export industry is around 46% of Sri Lanka's exports. We're one of the biggest merchandise export sector. We employ around 350,000 people. Our plants are located across the country. And we moved away from employing large numbers in free trade zones many years ago, following President Premadasa's very successful 250 garment program, and the country embarked on a policy where factories were taken up to the villages, and that concept has continued. So therefore our footprint in the country is right across the country. We have factories in the east, in the west, in the south, and all of these factories mean that in each of those locations we also have an impact on the communities that we work in. The industry employs around 350,000 people, but our indirect impact in terms of the lives of others, we probably impact the lives of around 1 million Sri Lankan citizens. The industry continues to be a major source of foreign revenue, foreign exchange for the government, and this is a key component of getting the economy back on track. Right now, Sri Lanka has had an exceptionally good first 7 months of the year. The last 2 months were both reported exports of over $500 million, and these are the highest they've been for a long time.
Meanwhile, JAF Secretary General in his exclusive went to discuss how the apparel sector's close collaboration with the government has contributed to its resilience through the economic crisis.
If we look at where we are in terms of the country situation, a number of months ago, obviously at the height of the crisis, the risk profile of Sri Lanka was much higher. When Sri Lanka announced its default in April, that put the country risk much higher, and that had two negative impacts. First, in terms of contraction of the financial economy, as banks naturally took into account the country risk. This meant that there was less funding available and was quite a constraint on the industry. Secondly, buyers' perception of Sri Lanka as an ability to deliver was at risk, and that was primarily because of what people see on TV and hear on the news and watch on the internet. The reality of it, of course, was that Sri Lanka Apparel continued to deliver in, and as I mentioned, our export figures are as high as they are because of the resilience of the industry. We worked very closely with the government and other stakeholders to ensure that the industry can continue operating. So whether that was from arrangements for provision of diesel to keep factories operating, to keep our buses moving, to keep the port open right through the economic crisis, the port and the airport continued to operate. And our plants, which as I mentioned are located not just in the heart of Colombo, but right across the island, continued to operate. So we were in a situation where we had to balance what people were seeing on the news and watching on the internet about Sri Lanka and instability, and we had to work very hard with our partners, both in Sri Lanka and overseas, to make sure that we continue to deliver the message that Sri Lanka remains open for business. And to the greater part, we were able to do that.
Now, workers' remittances saw a rebound in August, reaching $325 million, the highest level so far in 2022. August saw a 16% or $46 million increase over July. However, it is lower than the $446.6 million of inflow seen in August last year. For the first 8 months of 2022, workers' remittances amounted to $2.2 billion, down by 47.6%. The previous height in 2022 was in March at $318 million. Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment Manu Shenanayakara yesterday said that the target for 2022 was sending 300,000 workers for foreign jobs, and it has been increased to 330,000 due to high demand. This high demand stems both on the part of job seekers and receiving countries. The government is hoping to send at least 5,000 people by the end of the year to take up employment in South Korea, whilst noting that a total of 2,858 individuals have already left for South Korea for jobs this year. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka has issued over 700,000 passports during the first 8 months, creating an all-time high of travel documents issued by the Immigration and Emigration Department. The highest number of passports issued was in 2016 at 658,725 for the entire year. The output of 2022 is likely to set a new record. The latest data from the department shows that passport issuance in the first 8 months of the year has increased sharply by 312% to 705,412 from 171,168 passports in the same period last year. Recently, in an exclusive with our television, President of Cynic and Master Mariner Captain Ajit Piris detailed the role played by private education institutes in fortifying the nation's economic recovery.
We also train people in the maritime industry so that the Sri Lankan youth are employed on foreign ships and bringing the much needed foreign exchange to the country. Right now we have about 16,000 active seafarers, and out of which about 75% seafarers have been trained in our institute, SINEC, which we are very proud of. And these people, they bring approximately $350 million per annum to the country. And our project now is to increase this to 50,000 in 5 years. And the income or the foreign exchange generation out of that income will be approximately $1.5 billion to Sri Lanka. So that is our latest project, and we have initiated that and got the blessings of the maritime authorities to embark on that.
Stay tuned for stock updates.
Roundup.
Welcome back. This is State of Business, and now stock updates. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on positive notes today. The Osha Price Index gained 108.97 points to close at 9,813.18, and the S&P SL 20 gained 29.31 points to close at 3,160.6. The turnover was 4.7 million rupees and over 216 million shares were traded. Coming up next are Forex rates. Well, that's a wrap from today's edition of State of Business. See you tomorrow with State of Business at 7:45 p.m. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
State of Business was sponsored by
SLT Mobitel එකම එක සබඳියාව. IWS Aviation.